A very good morning and welcome to Political Spectrum, coming to you live on Spectrum Television. Hello from me, I am Raymond Ita. As expectedly, post-election reactions continue to dominate the aftermath of the just concluded 2023 elections. Only, we might have to skip concerns around the role played by the electoral umpire INEC in the election, even as the Mahmoud Yakubu-led INEC has voted in about 3 billion naira to defend its position in the February 25 and March 18 general elections, as we witnessed in the last few weeks. Well, this is all coming on the back of the post-election concerns and litigations that have trailed the aftermath of the elections, especially as political parties, especially those who lost out at the polls, have channeled their grievances to court. INEC says it needs about 3 billion naira to defend its position in that election. But a major concern this morning is the news making the rounds that the national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Senator Iyorchia Ayu, has been suspended from the party. Well, the news, of course, made the rounds late last night. But there's been a rebuttal early this morning by the state chapter of the PDP in Benue State, who claimed that they are not aware of the news making the rounds that Mr. Ayu has been suspended at the ward level. Reactions are trickling and pouring in, including from members of the so-called G5 or the Integrity Group of Governors, who all had a standoff with the PDP over the candidacy of Atiku Abubakar in the lead-up to the presidential election. The travels of the PDP continues and will form the basis of our discussion when we come back from this break. To stay with us, Political Spectrum will continue. Welcome back and thanks for staying on. You're watching Political Spectrum with me, Raymond Ita. And just a quick reminder that you can always connect with us via Start Times DTH Channel 421. And for live feeds, simply head to our YouTube channel where you can subscribe and be a part of the program as well. And don't forget to follow us on all of our socials, where you can leave us some messages as well. The conversation does continue on all of our social media platforms right after this. And today, I will do well to give you a chance as well to join in on the conversation by letting us know what you think about the two stories we'll be looking at today. First of which is the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, voting 3 billion naira to defend its position at the just concluded 2023 general elections in relation to the February 25 and March 18 polls that we saw in the last few weeks. And also, there's a lot of controversy hitting the main opposition party in the country, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, with the news making the rounds that the national chairman of the party, Iyorchia Ayu, has been suspended. But before we come to that, let's just give you a brief update on some of the other stories making the rounds this morning very quickly. And the candidate of the PDP at the just concluded elections, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, has hailed the UK's envoy to Nigeria, Ben Lewin-Jones, for also naming the director of new media of the Bola Tinubu campaign organization, Femi Fani-Kayode, among those who made inciting comments in the lead up to and after the just concluded general elections. In a statement yesterday released by the Special Assistant on Public Communications to Mr. Atiku, Frank Shwaibu, he said the Department of State Services, DSS, ought to have invited Femi Fani-Kayode, as the rhetoric he made could have set the country on fire. Well, Shuaibu maintained that Fani Kayode's claim that it would make Nigeria ungovernable if Tinubu is not inaugurated as president come May 29 was infuriating and also deserving the attention of the Department of State Services. Well, all of these are also coming on the back of a recent statement made by another spokesperson of the APC in the person of Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Festus Keyamo, who last week urged the DSS to arrest the Labour Party candidate Peter Obi as well as his running mate Dati Baba Ahmed over claims that inaugurating Tinubu come May 29 would be unconstitutional. Well, he had premised his argument on the fact that grievances from the aftermath of the election should be channeled to court and not making incendiary statements, as he claimed Mr. Dati Ahmed and Peter Obi had done, which he claimed could lead to an insurrection or rebellion in the country if Mr. Peter Obi and Dati Ahmed do not withdraw their words. But you also have another APC spokesperson in the person of Fani Kayode making such a remarks that he would make Nigeria ungovernable if Tinubu is not inaugurated as president come May 29. So it's a wonder why the DSS haven't also invited Fani Kayode for questioning. And let's not forget, it's not the first time FFK has made remarks of this nature. In the months and weeks leading up to the elections, he claimed that the presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, had a meeting with some hierarchy of the Nigerian army in a bid to alter the democratic process and bring about a coup in the country or an interim government. Well, he was invited for questioning by the DSS, and after being quizzed for some hours, he was let off. So it begs the question, who then should take the bull by the horn in, arresting or addressing concerns related to possible incitement of people towards violence if you're not satisfied with the position of things in the country? And that explains why the UK envoy, Lewin, had claimed that Fani Kayode was one of those who had made inciting comments and perhaps would see him being punished, as it's the position of the UK, the US, and several members of the international community who had said they would impose visa bans or other forms of punishment on anyone linked to violence or making inciting statements during the Nigerian election. So will Atiku's appeal be heeded by the respective quarters? It's left to be seen. But with that, we turn our sights now to another story, and this time we go to Oyo State, where new governor-elect and incumbent governor Seyi Makinde has called on his co-contestant in the just concluded governorship election in the state to join hands with him to move the state forward. Makinde, who described his electoral success as a victory for the people of the state, added that he's open to working with the ideas of his co-contestants wherever they are found to be superior to his. Now, the governor, who spoke at a program that was monitored, or a televised program that was monitored, promised to reach more people with development, as well as continue to deliver quality projects in all sectors of the state. Well, he added that he would go ahead to put the sticky points learned during campaign period into practice, just as he would continue with the task of vigorously developing the state as he had done since he took office in 2019. Well, it's left to be seen whether, of course, the losing contestants in this case would actually team up with him to move the state forward. And it's good to also bring this up to our notice that, of course, the governor-elect, deputy governor-elect, as well as the State Assembly member-elects from the March 18 governorship and State Assembly elections will all be receiving their certificates of return. Now, this information was disclosed by the chairman of the Information and Voter Education Committee of INEC, Festus Okoye. While the date set aside for receiving the certificates of return will be on March 19, or rather March 29, 30 and 31st respectively. Make that Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week. So with reference to all the governor-elects, some of them are freshers, others are second-timers. They'll all be receiving their certificates of return later this week. So you could say congratulations are in order to them. But as we would expect, there would be post-election litigations and concerns, especially on the part of those who were not satisfied with the outcome of this election. And perhaps special reference to us here in Akwa Ibom State, where we're expecting Governor-elect Pastor Moino and Deputy Governor-elect Akon Ayayi, as well as the respective member-elects of the State House of Assembly in the 26 state constituencies in Akwa Ibom State, also expecting to receive their certificates of return. Well, those are the fresh updates we'll only make do with on the show this morning, but stick around, we'll go for another short breather. When we come back, there's a crisis deepening further in the People's Democratic Party, with the news making the rounds that the national chairman of the party, Senator Iyorchia Ayu, has been suspended. How true are those claims, with reactions and counter-reactions claiming that it's true, or some saying this news is not true? But we'll find out more when we come back. Just stay with us, Political Spectrum. We'll return.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Political Spectrum on Spectrum Television. Don't forget, you can be a part of the conversation by simply reaching out to us on the numbers that will be displayed on the screen. But I'd like to advise that when you do join in, endeavor to keep your reactions, your calls and contributions as moderate as possible. What a first big story, and arguably the biggest story of the day, is coming from the camp of the main opposition party in the country, the People's Democratic Party, with news making the rounds that the national chairman of the party, Senator Iyorchia Ayu, has been suspended from the party. Now, this claims, of course, comes from the leadership of the PDP in Igorov Council Ward, and that's in Boko local government area of Benue State, which is the ward where the former, as it is its now position, chairman of the party, Iyorchia Ayu, actually hails from. Now, the executives of the party cited anti-party activities of Ayu as the reason why it has been suspended. Now, this is contained in a statement that was signed by 12 out of 17 officials of the ward and was issued yesterday in the Benue State capital of Makurdi. Now, let's go through the statements that was issued by the leadership of the party's ward executive, who claimed they observed with utmost dismay that Iyorchia Ayu, who is the national chairman of the PDP, worked against the success of the party in Igorov Council Ward. It is on record that he also failed to pay his annual subscription fees as provided under Section 8, Subsection 9 of the Constitution of the PDP 2017 as amended. Now, further investigation also revealed that he did not vote during the governorship and state assembly elections held on March 18, 2023. Now, it further stated that it was also discovered that most of his closest allies worked for the opposition party, the All Progressives Congress APC, hence the abysmal performance of the PDP in the Igorov ward. Now, it also stated that in view of the foregoing, a vote of no confidence was passed on him and he was suspended as a member of the party with immediate effect. Now, according to the statements, the suspension actually took effect from March 24, make that Friday last week. And of course, effort had been made to reach out to the State Publicity Secretary of the PDP in Benue State, Bemga Ayotom, who had confirmed the authenticity of the suspension letter. He, however, said he had not been contacted officially about the suspension. So there are lots of issues to look at here as far as the purported suspension of Senator Iyorchia Ayu is concerned, and we'll perhaps have a timeless look on the positions leading to the formal suspension of Mr. Iyorchia Ayu from the party, beginning from the crisis that rocked the PDP just before the presidential primaries of the party last year, which produced former Vice President Atiku Abubakar as the standard bearer of the party. Now, we know it's already established that President Buhari will be completing 2 terms of 8 years as president of the country from a northern extraction. Well, the position of some within the PDP was that since power is just coming from the north, it would only be wise that power rotates to the south. And this perhaps gets back to the rise of the so-called G5 group, or the integrity group, spearheaded by Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike, who was also an aspirant in the lead up to the presidential primaries of the PDP and actually finished second behind Atiku Abubakar at the presidential primaries. Well, after the primaries, which produced Atiku as the winner, Wike did not defect from the party, but alongside the governors of Oyo State, Seyi Makinde, Okezie Ikpeazu of Abia, Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi of Enugu, as well as Samuel Otom of Benue, they decided to form the Integrity Group, which also included other stakeholders in the party, as the likes of Ayo Fayose, former governor of Ekiti State, Senator Ayim Pius Ayim, former Senate President, as well as other bigwigs in the party, Olabode George, who hails from Lagos State, former Benue Governor Kume, and several others who claimed that they would only back the position of the party's constitution, which allows for zoning of power, or power rotation as it were, and they were claiming it's the turn of the South to produce a president. And perhaps it had informed the choice of the split in the party, spearheaded by these governors, who decided to support candidates of Southern extraction at the just concluded election. The only difference is that all 5 governors did not reach a common ground as to who they wanted to support. And that's why we saw Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers and Seyi Makinde of Oyo deciding to pitch tent with the All Progressives Congress candidate and now President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who hails from the south, while the likes of Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi of Enugu, Okezie Ikpeazu of Abia, and Governor Samuel Otom of Benue State all decided to pitch tent with the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi, who also hails from the south. So their position was very clear. As far as elections into the governorship, National Assembly and State Assembly elections in their respective states were concerned, in the course of campaigning, each of the governors reiterated their position that their faithfuls and party supporters should vote for the PDP in these elections. But as far as the presidential polls were concerned, they were very clear that they would not support Atiku Abubakar's candidacy. So, some have said this perhaps was the biggest reason why the PDP failed massively in the presidential polls. The disparity in the number of votes between Tinubu, who emerged as the winner according to figures collated and announced by INEC, and then the PDP, who came in second, is a paltry 1.8 million plus votes. So let's assume that the PDP received overwhelming support in Rivers, Oyo, Benue, Enugu, as well as Abia State in the presidential polls. Would that have been enough to upscale the result in favor of Atiku at the just concluded presidential election? But the jury may still be out on that. But we cannot shy away from the fact that the crisis that rocked the PDP even before the first votes were cast is enough to have truncated its chances of success at these elections. Let's move on from that now. It's already established that the 5 states I've just mentioned, apart from Abia State, where the Labour Party won the governorship election, the rest of the states saw PDP candidates emerging victorious in the governorship polls. But at the presidential polls, it was a massive failure for the PDP at those polls. Well, you could argue that maybe the state governors in this question somewhat had a hand in deflecting the votes that the PDP would have had in their state in favor of the candidates and the parties that they choose to support. Except for Benue State, perhaps, because as we know it, the APC won in Benue State in the presidential election. But for Abia and Enugu, we saw victories for the Labour Party. In Oyo and River State, we saw victories for the APC because the PDP governors there decided to pitch their tent with Bola Ahmed Tinubu. All of this may have informed the decision of the National Working Committee of the PDP to make moves to suspend the 5 governors from the party, a move that is yet to materialize, we have to say, except that the other stakeholders who also pitched their tent with the Integrity Group, like the likes of Ayo Fayose, former governor of Ekiti State, and former Senate President Ayim Pius Ayim, who as of today, in the views and position of the National Working Committee, are now suspended from the PDP. That was last week, by the way, and it perhaps led to the statement made by Governor Nyesom Wike, who said the NWC doesn't have a right or the power to suspend the duo from the party, because they said if there was anyone who should be suspended, it should be Senator Iyorchia Ayu. Now, it leads us to the comments made by Governor Nyesom Wike on a televised program early this morning that we monitored, where he claimed that he was in support of the purported suspension of Iyorchia Ayu. But the question is it true that Iyorchia Ayu has been suspended? I did give you a background where the state publicity secretary of the PDP in Benue State, where Ayu also comes from, claims that they have seen a notice or the letter of suspension from the ward level of the PDP in Boko local government area where Iyorchia Ayu comes from. But he also claims that he has personally not been contacted. So he's only seen the letter perhaps in the media space or from some of his cronies or those who were within the rank and file of the party. But as far as being officially confirmed, this is not the position. So if the PDP in Igroyev ward of Boko local government area have purportedly suspended Mr. Iyorchia Ayu, why haven't they communicated their stand or their position to the state? Be connected to the fact that Governor Samuel Atom of Benue has been referred to the disciplinary committee of the PDP at the National Working Committee level over allegations of anti-party activities. We've already established that Governor Samuel Atom is a member of the G5 group that did not support, the candidacy of Atiku, and also called for the resignation of Senator Iyorchia Ayu as the national chairman of the party. These are 2 gentlemen from the same state, and it's a surprise that they were at loggerheads over who should be the party's candidate in that election. Well, some would have said Iyorchia Ayu comes from Benue. Benue is in the southern part of the country, and the governor of your state is saying, let's be very fair with the way we do things. Power rotation is approved. It's constitutional within the party's guidelines. Let power return to the south. But it appears that Atiku had a firm grip on the party and perhaps on the national chairman of the party, Iyorchia Ayu, who refused to budge on his position that Atiku remains the flag bearer of the party. And that explains the resounding loss that the PDP had and recorded at the just concluded polls. But it's clear that we've not seen the last of this as far as the permutations here are concerned. But let's head to Governor Nyesom Wike's statement when he spoke on that issue early this morning. And these were his own words when he was asked if he was behind the action of the PDP officials in Benue State. And here's what he said. In fact, if Ayu, had left the party before now, they would have said he had left, and that was why the PDP failed in the election. So Wike is simply saying, look, Ayu stayed. He refused to resign despite the calls that were made. And in spite of the fact that he did not resign and he stayed in the party as the national chairman of the party throughout the course of the election, the PDP still failed. So is perhaps rescuing himself from being culpable to the PDP's loss at the presidential election, and said that was solely the responsibility of Mr. Iyorchia Ayu and not him. So why is the PDP still shooting itself in the foot? One would have thought that with President Buhari leaving office and opposed to the 2019 elections where they had to face a sitting incumbent, this was a good chance for the PDP to record a good success at the polls, but they truncated that chances by not putting their houses in order. And we know opinion may be diverse here about the role that the G5 has played in all of this, with some persons saying Governor Nyesom Wike, being the leader of the group, is largely responsible for the failures of the PDP in that election. But that may not totally be the case, because he has severally insisted that the PDP has guidelines and regulations that guide the activities of the party. And if one of such regulations clearly stipulates rotation of power between the South and the North, why didn't Atiku work for the success of the party by standing down on his ambition, knowing that the North has just completed 8 years? And so maybe power should come to the South. But Atiku has premised his decision to come out on the fact that the constitution of the country doesn't recognize or support zoning. Well, he's 100% right, but he was flaunting his ambition on the platform of a party that he actually dumped back in 2015 because it wasn't satisfied with the position of the party's principles of zoning. So why did he come back to the party again at a time when he knew that the zoning position or the zoning principle of the party would not favor him? So it would have been a different thing altogether. Some would argue that if the PDP zoning culture or zoning principle was not enshrined in its regulations and constitution, maybe Atiku would have had a clean sweep to the elections. Maybe Wike or the G5 group would have supported him after his emergence as a party flag bearer. But we cannot shy away from the fact that enshrined in the PDP's constitution is the zoning formula. So if you were a member of the party, a cat-carrying member of the party for that matter, you will have been well undated about the position of the party on zoning. And so it premised the argument of Governor Wike and the others that power should return to the South. I mean, we didn't see them go to support any other candidate apart from Southern candidates. Yes, there was a split amongst the G5, but 3 of them supported Peter Obi, 2 supported Bola Tinubu. The 2 persons in question are all from the South, and it means they kept to their faith and binding principle of power returning to the South, or in a Southern presidency days 2. And that was the case. So let's leave the court litigations that will follow. That's something to do with INEC and how they conducted the elections. But for the PDP and going forward, when will the party learn its lessons? And now we're hearing the news that the national chairman of the party has been suspended, but the hierarchy of the party is claiming they are not aware. Now, we know that the right to suspend someone from a party can only come at the ward level. So, Igroyov Ward in Boko local government area of Benue State is where Senator Iyorchia Ayu comes from. And the ward has issued a statement to say that the national chairman has been suspended. If that is the position, the state chapter has to comply. The national level of the party also has to comply with this directive. But we are in a statement from the publicity secretary of the PDP Benue State, who claims he's not aware or he hasn't been communicated to officially that Mr. Iyorchia Ayu has been suspended. So who is right or who is wrong in all of this, and when will the PDP learn their lessons? Or feel free to join us and let's get your take on this. Not just members of the PDP, but of course the electorate. We do not know what position you had taken in the course of this election, but one thing we cannot deny is that the internal wranglings in the PDP also contributed somewhat to its loss at the presidential election, because the PDP also recorded a good outing in the governorship polls. We saw them pick up a number of states at the elections, just like the APC. Yes, the APC had the highest number of votes in the governorship polls. The PDP came in just in second, with the Labour Party only clinching one state in Abia State, which was formerly a PDP stronghold. It means the PDP has a lot to do to put its house in order going forward. Or the insinuations that Governor Nyesom Wike and the members of the G5, including Governor Samuel Atom, who has been referred to the disciplinary committee of the PDP by the National Working Committee this time, may have been responsible for Iyorchia Ayu's suspension. So, if this is the case, because Governor Nyesom Wike has confirmed himself that he is in support of the suspension, meaning he could have had a hand in this. I mean, Governor Tom is the leader of the party in Benue State, of which Iyorchia Ayu also comes from, so he may have been instrumental to his suspension as well, just as Iyorchia Ayu used the National Working Committee of the PDP to refer Governor Otom to its disciplinary committee over anti-party activities. Well, some might argue, and we have to be very, very honest with ourselves here. The question is, did Governor Otom engage himself in anti-party activities? It appears that the answer is yes, because he hasn't left the PDP, he's still a member of the PDP, but he openly canvassed for support for the presidential candidates of the Labour Party. Now, that amounts in all clear terms to an anti-party activity. Did governors of Rivers or were they engaged in anti-party activities? The answer is yes. Governor Wike openly campaigned and supported Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the APC, who is president-elect today. Now, that amounts to and constitutes to anti-party activities. The same position could be said for Makinde of Oyo, Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi of Enugu, and Okezie Ikpeazu of Abia, because they all supported presidential candidates who were not of the PDP. So some might say the National Working Committee were not wrong for referring them to the disciplinary committee of the party, or at least in the case of Governor Tom. And that's where you could say the PDP is shooting itself in the foot. I mean, you have 5 governors here involved in the standoff. Why single out only Governor Tom of Benue State for disciplinary actions? I mean, are they scared of Governor Nyesom Wike? Are they scared of Okezie Ikpeazu, Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi, or Seyi Makinde? While the case of Wike may be different because he had secured a court injunction barring the PDP from suspending him from the party or any of the other members of the G5 for that matter. Referring only Governor Tom to the disciplinary committee of the party means there is something fishy going on behind the scene that we are not well aware of. And it may explain why there's been a tit for tat here by the Benue State chapter of the PDP, who have announced the suspension of Mr. Iyorchia Ayu. How far will we go with all these intricacies of the PDP, especially as they hope to put their house in order? This is a time where they're supposed to shit their swords, have a common ground, and see whether or not they can, retrieve the mandates they claim they lost at the elections in court. But when you have an internal crisis as well, how can they mount a successful challenge in court? It means it leaves the Labour Party as the only credible challengers hoping to retrieve the mandates that they claim they had lost in the elections by the time they head to court. And these are what we'll be getting your reactions on. Feel free to join the conversations. The numbers, of course, are displayed on the screen. We'd love to hear from you as far as your concerns with the PDP crisis, going on across the country is concerned, with the news making the rounds that Senator Iyorchia Ayu, the erstwhile national chairman of the party, has now been suspended. We'll take a breather. When we come back, Political Spectrum will continue.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abuse. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My Lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My Lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my
this
Lord.
an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord. These cases are in court, my Lord. I'm just reminding you, Lordship.
My Lord, sorry, my Lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join INEC every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Every day, we bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigerian, from issues on politics,
Hello, Nigeria. I remain committed.
security, education, health, lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyakin every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying on. You're still watching Political Spectrum on Spectrum Television. And a quick reminder of the major discussion this morning. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, has purportedly suspended its national chairman, Senator Iyorchia Ayu. Well, this information is contained in a statement released by the party's executive at the ward level, precisely Igroyev ward in Boko local government area of Benue State, who issued a statement to claim that Mr. Ayu was suspended on the grounds of anti-party activities. 12 out of 17 officials of the ward signed and issued the statement yesterday in the Benue State capital, Makurdi, observing with utmost dismay that Iyorchia Ayu was against the success of Igroyev Council Ward at the just concluded March 18 governorship polls in the state, and they claim they have it on record that he failed to pay his annual subscription fees, as provided under Section 8, Subsection 9 of the Constitution of the PDP 2017 as amended. That sounds pretty funny, you have to admit, if the claims are true that Mr. Ayu did not pay his fees. As a national chairman of the party, he would have been expected to lead by example for others to follow. But of course, this adjusts one side to the argument from the claims made by the party's executives at the ward level. Now, they also said that more investigations revealed that Mr. Ayu did not cast his vote during the just concluded governorship and state assembly elections held on March 18. And whether that was connected to the face-off he has with Governor Sambo Otom of Benue State, a member of the G5 group who have constantly called for the resignation of Ayu over claims that he did not respect the party's guidelines on zoning by truncating the primaries in favor of Atiku Abubakar of Northern Extraction, as their position remained that power rotation is the way to go, and insisting on a Southern presidency. Hence the decision to respectively support the ambitions of President-elect Bola Tinubu and the Labour Party candidate Peter Obi. Now, it's said in view of the foregoing, a vote of no confidence was passed on him, and he has been suspended as a member of the party with immediate effect, also claiming that the discovery showed that most of the close allies of Mr. Iyorchia Ayu had worked for the opposition APC, hence the abysmal performance of the PDP in Igorov ward of the just concluded March 18 governorship and state assembly elections. We've already given you the position in terms of reactions from party stakeholders to this news, including Governor Nyesom Wike, who spearheaded the standoff against Atiku and the PDP at the national level. In a televised program this morning, he said he was in support of the suspension, and when asked if he was behind the actions of the PDP officials in Benue, and he has reminded everyone that he was not responsible for the failure of the PDP at the just concluded polls, but that's a matter for Ayu and the National Working Committee, because they had for the opting time insisted that as long as the PDP produced a northern candidate for the presidential election, they would not be supporting the party, and they kept true, to those words going into the February 25 presidential election. We've been hoping to get your reactions on this. We'll love to do so just before we wrap up. But let's take our minds now to today's second issue, and that's on INEC. Yes, the electoral umpire has announced it would be voting as much as 3 billion naira to defend its position at the just concluded 2023 elections. Well, it's no more news that the budgets meant for INEC to conduct the 2023 elections amounted to over 300 billion naira. So if INEC had that much money to prosecute this year's election, why did we have the notable hitches and glitches that were recorded during the exercise? I mean, it raises a lot of questions as to whether or not INEC have not been compromised, as well as the calls by many that anti-graft agencies should investigate Mr. Mahmoud Yakubu, the chairman of INEC, and the activities of the entire commission with the just concluded election. Why does INEC need as much as 3 billion naira to defend itself as far as the just concluded elections are concerned? And that's because we know that most parties are channeling their grievances to court. And INEC cannot, of course, escape from this, because they are an interested party in the litigations that would follow after the elections. So they're saying they need as much as 3 billion naira, probably to pay up its lawyers who would be defending them in the course of the cases that they would likely face in the aftermath of the polls. Well, where are areas we need to perhaps look at with reference to the resources that INEC polled or used in the course of this election? Well, INEC had always maintained, and for the opt-in time we continue raising these issues, that they were 100% ready to conduct these elections. In terms of the area of logistics, well, assurances came in from the FRSC and from the NURTW that they were, of course, in touch with INEC to ensure a seamless movement of election materials and officials during the election day. So let's assume that one of the concerns that will arise during the litigation processes in court would be the late arrival of INEC materials and officials to polling units on election days. Can INEC rescue itself from this to say that they were not culpable for the late arrival of materials to some electoral unit or polling unit, as well as the late arrival of their officials, or in some cases, officials not even turning up at all? So INEC is requesting for more taxpayers' money to defend the refusal or the late arrival of election materials or of its officials on election day. These are the issues that would rear their ugly heads and would lead to people alleging that INEC may have been compromised in the course of this election. What about money, or the availability of money? We know in the lead up to the election, INEC had a meeting with the chairman of INEC, Mahmoud Yakubu, meeting with the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, to outline issues on areas of financial resources that would be deployed in the election. And the CBN assured that even in the face of the cash crunch occasioned by the Naira swap policy, the money already set aside for INEC to carry out its functions during the elections were already there, so there were no worries. Even when INEC said, well, look, we have issues that we're going to need fiscal cash for, the CBN insisted there were no concerns. There was money on ground to assist INEC in carrying out its duties. And in the eve of the elections, that was on February 24, the final press conference before the first votes were cast, the INEC chairman, again, after being quizzed by reporters and journalists, assured the country and the rest of the world that INEC were 100% ready to conduct the elections. But what we saw on the election day differed from the promises that were made. As I already outlined, officials turning up late in some polling units, they didn't turn up at all. Election materials arriving pretty late. In some cases, not enough ballot boxes. This time we're talking about election concerns from February 25, by the way. Malfunctioning of beavers deployed in the wrong areas, issues around the displacement of some beavers. Some of them, of course, had to be recovered just in time before voting could take place, and several other issues rearing their ugly heads after that poll was conducted. Yes, we know, if you want to compare the February 25 election to what we had on March 18, even in the views of the election observers, some of the issues we had on February 25 did not come up again on March 18. For instance, we didn't have complaints about malfunctioning of the beavers or wrongful deployment of beavers meant for polling unit A to polling unit B and vice versa. We didn't have those issues again. Also, we didn't have issues with reference to election officials or materials arriving late on March 18, as was the case in February 25. So, when you had as much as over 300 billion naira voted to conducting the elections, and then we still had these concerns rear their ugly heads, it raises the question, what did INEC do with all of this money? And why do they need as much as 3 billion naira to defend themselves in courts for cases that they were largely culpable? I mean, will they be able to rescue themselves from the allegations that they were perhaps compromised, especially when we saw first-hand evidence and footages to suggest possible connivance between INEC officials and some political parties during the elections? So, more taxpayers' money is just going to be channeled to, defend an election that many have said were marred with massive irregularities. So, who's going to approve this money? We expect that the National Assembly would sit on this, talk about this, but for an assembly that has been widely considered to be a rubber-stamped one, perhaps not everyone would be surprised if the money is actually approved for INEC to defend the conduct of the just concluded election. So, at a time where Nigerians are grappling with financial issues, of course, you only need to go around the banking institutions across the country and you would realize that the queues have not gone away. People are still queuing up to access their own money, in spite of the fact that the CBN had promised that the old notes would be recirculated. Last week, a statement was issued mandating deposit money banks in the country to open even on Saturday and Sunday so customers could access the cash that they said has been recirculated. But early this morning, we could still see queues, barricading the premises of banks across the country, ATM vault, and even visiting the point of sale operators just to access money. And so, even in the face of the scarcity of cash, we still had as much as over 300 billion naira given to INEC to conduct the elections, but the elections did not meet the standards that Nigerians had hoped for. And even in the views of some of the international observers who came, they had fingered INEC for a poor conduct of the exercise overall. And now they're requesting for another 3 billion naira just to handle post-election litigations. So, what had INEC been doing all the while that they had assured Nigerians that they were 100% ready to conduct these elections? It raises more questions than answers, but we only hope that the answers would be sufficed in the coming days as we lead up to the court cases that will likely trail the aftermath of these elections. Well, these are the issues we were hoping to get your reactions on, and feel free to join us if you can. But of course, the social media platforms are all available where the conversation does continue. Visit our pages and leave us a message as well. We'd love to read from you as we progress. The final lap of the show would come when we come back from this break. Political Spectrum will continue. Please don't go away.
Presidential and National Assembly elections, which was held on Saturday, February 25th, witnessed reactions from different people across the country. Join us as we sample some of the reactions.
Elections, which are forms of choosing leaders where the citizens have rights to vote and be voted for, started in 1959 with different political parties. For 2023, Nigeria's presidential and National Assembly election was held on February 25th to elect the president, members of Senate, and House of Representatives of the country. A total of 18 presidential candidates took part in the election, but 4 were considered major contenders. They include Atiku Abubakar of PDP, Bola Tinubu of APC, Peter Obi of Labour Party, and Rabiu Kwankwaso of NNPP. The elections, which were supposed to start at 8:30 a.m., did not start early in many polling units across Nigeria. However, the few polling units where the election started on time, voting ended as scheduled by INEC at 2:30 p.m. The general election, despite fuel and currency scarcity, was noted by initially high projected turnout and mainly peaceful voting, but was marred by reports of vote buying, voter intimidation, attacks on polling units in certain areas, and unpunctuality of electoral officials, along the accusation of outright fraud to compound issues with trust in the election. Aside the challenges of delay of electoral materials and technical issues, polling station allocations were also problematic, as some polling units had just a handful of voters, while others had more than 2,000.
Initially, when they brought the beaver, it wasn't used. So we, as a coordinators, took the beaver to the collation center, which is the ward centers, and the things was rectified. We now took it to the unit, and it was counted. It was functioning very well. But later, in different ways, in different polling units, said they have not been using the beaver. So I don't know, but by own they made use of it, and it was successful. As a teacher, as a proprietor, I find it difficult to pay my teachers. I wish that the government should do something about, so that the money will enter into a common person on the street, so that life will be, because life have lost, a lot of lives have lost because of the issue of cashless policy.
I think the beavers function because some polling units, like my polling units, the beavers was used throughout the election. So I think the beavers function. Though I was not, I couldn't divide myself to go around to monitor what happened. But I think the beavers work, like the case in my polling units. It's a matter of a network problem. Like today I went to a fuel station, removed my card. They said there is no net. Well, I have to, at least at that point, I was so frustrated. So this is as a result of the cashless policy. Though the timing is not very okay, what we are looking for, if they can bring up this cashless policy to the beer and everybody should go cashless. In fact, it could be okay. It will check excessive. It will check corruption in the other hand. So I think it's the best policy, sir.
Well, the election was, by the special grace of God, it was free and fair. Here in Akwa Ibom State, we found out that we saw everything, that the election was free and fair. And there's nothing we can do about it. He that the crowd thinks they give to. So the nation have seen that it was Tinubu alias Jagaban of Africa. So they don't have anything tough to say. Everybody has seen it, so they have given it to him, and we wish him all the best. Though the beavers in some units, here in Uyo, some units, it was not working, but immediately, like 8 or like 3 units I was, in the next 10 to 15 minutes, the INEC replaced the beavers back. So I'm talking about based on where I was. The beavers were not working, but they have to replace it with the new one, which they use the beavers.
I went to the bank to withdraw money. There was no money, and I was very hungry. Only 1,000. Look at what I bought. I bought this one, 100 naira. I can't buy this one, 50 naira. I was trying to do if I can manage 1,000 naira to feed. So this country is not good for us. We are suffering.
Cashless policy, personally, I thought the cashless policy was for the politicians who stash out the whole lot of money from the banking system to keep in their private home. But now that cashless policy, I don't think the thing is really working well, because the whole lot of masses are suffering because of it. So I think that if the CBN wanted to do something, you understand, to affect people, to affect those people that have stashed out those money from the economy, I think they would have stopped using, they wouldn't have print 500 and 1,000 naira again. They would have just print only 200 naira, 200 naira, 100 naira, 50 naira, 20 naira, 10 naira, and 5 naira.
Another issue raised by the civic group was the INEC result viewing portal IREV, which was designed to provide real-time transmission of election results from polling units to the Central Collection Center in an attempt to enhance the transparency of the electoral process and reduce the incidence of vote rigging and election manipulation. The Independent National Electoral Commission officials failed to upload polling unit results to the INEC result viewing portal in accordance with the law as of February 26, where election results were announced at the National Collection Center in Abuja. Most people aside the civic group also complained of INEC delay in uploading the election results in the IREV.
The result sheet was uploaded on the BFAS because I follow up to the INEC office and I saw how it was uploaded. But a situation, we were expected that if I vote, my vote will register on the BFAS and the results will go up automatically. That was the expectation of my own, unlike other people also. But as the result was announced early this morning, well, INEC have announced, as a person, I will not make any statement on the outcome, but this is not how the process were expected. I believe that by next election, if we were to use electronic voting, let it be a situation whereby I put in my card and my result is registered, and not a situation whereby a third party will be there again to upload the result again.
The Beavers issue is an apology. Nothing concerning Beavers was what we expected. Look at what they do when football is played. They say VAR. When there's something wrong, they get back to the VAR, isn't it? But can we run back to the Beavers right now to see if what was done was really exactly what happened? So it's unfortunate that whatever had been done, how much has been sunk into it, is now something that we can, in fact, cry and shed a lot of tears about.
The reason why people came out en masse to vote was the reason that the election will be free and fair, that every vote will be counted. But it was a greatest surprise that the machines, they have not been using the machine. And at the end of it, they're using hands to count.
I think that the beavers was not used at all because there was high expectation for the beavers to use during the 2023 I can say that the beaver was not used at all. How can someone, a returning officer, just come out to call the results manually? Whereas people were thinking that they will display the thing, as they were saying that they will display it, but they did not display anything.
Meanwhile, the Independent National Electoral Commission had on the 1st of March 2023 declared the presidential candidate of the All Progressive Congress, APC, Bola Tinubu, the winner of the 2023 polls.
Kachuku Dumebi of the ADC, H 1919. Tinubu Bola Ahmed of the APC, 8,794,726. Obi Peter Gregory of the LP, 6,101,533. Musa Mohammed Rabiu Kwankwaso of the NNPP, 1,496,687. Abubakar Atiku of the PDP, 6,984,520. That Tinubu Bola Ahmed of the age.
Welcome back. You're still watching Political Spectrum on Spectrum Television. That was our correspondent, Esther Otoyo, with a report on the conduct of the just concluded 2023 elections. Concerns raised, of course, with reference to the February 25 polls, which INEC maintains was free, fair, and credible. But what about the position of Nigerians? Well, opinion remains largely divided, especially now in the face of INEC's request for 3 billion naira to defend post-election litigations. While the elections have been adjudged to be one of the most controversial in the annals of the nation's recent history, with reports of electoral malpractices, beavers machines that didn't work, despite the earlier assurance by INEC that they would, of course, function optimally. And as I mentioned earlier on, Nigerians saw footages and videos of different electoral malpractices that they were not exclusive of only one party. It appears all the leading political parties in the country were involved. And a lot of persons are familiar with the saying that he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. So what has INEC done in its bid to give Nigerians the free, fair, and credible polls that they are all clamored for? Not forgetting the optimism and the excitement that greeted the announcement of the collection of PVCs for this exercise. So much so that INEC's voter register captured as much as 9.5 million Nigerians who registered for this exercise. And of that number, or rather 93.5 million, begging your pardon, names on INEC voter register. But of that number, only about 86 million plus reportedly collected their PVCs, but did not reflect the actual number of persons who eventually came out to vote. While we may occasion that on the narrow swap policy and the cash scarcity that affected Nigerians across board, including the ongoing fuel scarcity as well, one would have said the number that eventually came out to vote, so much so that the winning candidates polled as much as 8 million plus votes according to INEC, shows large voter apathy and refusal of most Nigerians to come out to vote, especially on March 18, after what they saw on February 25. So it appears in the view of many that INEC are largely responsible for the incidences that were recorded with reference to irregularities observed and witnessed in the polls. So let them go out there and defend themselves if they claim that the elections were free, fair, and credible, or in the position of some within INEC rank and file, that even if we had some incidents recorded, they were not enough to call for an outright cancellation of the polls. I mean, if you go to areas or states where voters were intimidated from coming out to vote, reference to Lagos in particular, where ethnic sentiments were being whipped up, with some chieftains of some political parties, in particular the APC, coming out to tell voters who were not going to vote for the APC not to bother about coming out. That amounts to criminality and impeding people from exercising their electoral franchise. And on that premise, shouldn't that have been enough to call off elections in such areas or in such locations? But elections went ahead, results were announced, even in places where people were not allowed to vote. So where did those results come from? I mean, it looks like INEC made themselves the judge, the jury, the accuser, and everything about the whole case, because we would have expected that they would have maintained their role as the electoral umpire in this case, and allow, of course, the observers, both local and international, and the interested parties in the polls to come up with their respective positions and then attend to them as well, just to forestall future occurrences with reference to the cases that came up after the presidential election. But it looks like what happened in the governorship polls was ×2 of what we saw in the presidential election, with widespread voter intimidation, voter inducement, vote buying and vote trading in different guises, and of course violence recorded in several places. But it's a wonder how results still managed to trickle in from areas where voting did not take place at all. And then INEC is calling for 3 billion naira to defend itself in court on cases where there are footages and evidences to back up claims that INEC and their officials were actually culpable. What about the matter of whether or not results were transmitted electronically? I mean, is the INEC chairman going to testify in court with taxpayers' money that INEC never said they would transmit results electronically, or that the Electoral Act did not make for such provisions, when he himself was captured on live television promising that results would be transmitted in real time, electronically? So why do they need so much money to go defend themselves in cases or matters that they have been culpable, especially taxpayers' money? Well, these are issues that would, of course, continue, and we'll do a bit to, of course, keep tabs on them and bring you up to speed as well as they do progress. But a reminder of the biggest story of the day. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, has suspended the national chairman of the party, Senator Iyorchia Ayu. Well, this was contained in a statement issued by the party's ward executives in New Grove ward at Boko Local Government Council of Benue State, where Mr. Ayu hails from. They've premised the decision to suspend him on alleged anti-party activities, where, amongst other things, it's been claimed that Mr. Iyorchia Ayu worked against the interest of the PDP in Iyo Grove ward, as well as the Boko Council area of Benue State. It was alleged that some of his aides had colluded with the opposition APC to truncate the PDP's chances in that ward that just concluded March 18 governorship polls. And on that premise, 12 out of 17 members of the party's executive had signed the letter purporting his suspension. The party's secretariat in Benue has been contacted about this, and the state publicity secretary of the PDP in Benue State, Mr. Bemga, has confirmed that while he has seen the letter of suspension for Mr. Iyorchia Ayu, he claims he has not been contacted officially by the ward executive. So what does this mean? Does it mean that the position of the ward executives has been ratified, and so Mr. Iyorchia Ayu stands suspended? Well, we cannot draw a conclusion on this just yet, especially when the hierarchy of the party at the national level claim they're not aware of his suspension, while the likes of Governor Nyesom Wike, leader of the G5 and Integrity Group of Governors, claim they are in support of the suspension. Where does this leave the PDP at a time where they're supposed to be united to see if they can rescue a mandate they claim they lost during the elections in court? A house divided against itself clearly cannot stand. So how far will the PDP go on this? When next week come your way, we'll talk more about this, and that will be tomorrow. We're hoping to have executives of the PDP across board joining us to talk about this, and we'll be in Makodi as well tomorrow, where we'll get in touch with Governor Adobo to who's in Benue State to give us feelers on all this. By the time we've gotten the views of all the parties interested in this, to see how far this will go, and the position of the candidate of the party himself, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, who is yet to speak on this matter. Until then, we cannot say much, but we'll leave it at that. But that's how far we can go on Political Spectrum this morning. Many thanks indeed for joining us, but the conversation does continue. Don't forget, you can reach out to us on all of our socials, leave us a message. We'd love to read from you as well. Enjoy the rest of the day's broadcast. But from me, Raymond Ita, and the rest of the crew, thanks for watching, and bye for now.